want to take this time to say good morning to all and welcome to our service in observance of International Women's Day and Women's History Month. Today in our land acknowledgement, we wish to lift up the work of the Sogorea Te Land Trust, which is an urban indigenous women-led land trust based in the San Francisco Bay Area that facilitates the return of indigenous land to indigenous people through the practices of rematriation, which means to restore a people to their rightful place in sacred relationship with their ancestral land. Through that process and practice, and also of cultural revitalization and land restoration, Sogorea Te calls on native and non-native peoples to heal and transform the legacies of colonization, genocide, and patriarchy, and to do the work of our ancestors and future generations are calling us to do. In the heart of deep East Oakland, Lishan is a traditional village site and the first piece of land rematriated by Sogorea Te within the territory of Huchun. Lishan is home to the first arbor, a California native ceremonial space in this territory in over 250 years. It's a symbol of Ohlone people's resistance and strength. So if you wish to learn more about their work or contribute to Shumi tax, which is a voluntary annual contribution that non-indigenous people living on traditional Lishan Ohlone territory make to support the critical work of the Sogorea Te Land Trust, please visit their website, which is https sogoreatelandtrust.org, and we can share that with you. Additionally, as we enter this time of worship, we are holding two women in our community very tenderly as they navigate the journey of grief. Reverend Leanne Younger, whose husband passed yesterday from a very rare and rapidly degenerative disease. He was her partner in life and ministry, and we hold her and their children in our hearts. And we also hold one of our newer students, Aquarius Love, her mother and their family in our hearts as her youngest brother passed over the weekend as well, after being in hospice for just a little over a week. So let us hold a gentle silence for them and for all others who may be experiencing grief in this time. Thank you. And at this time, Barbara Murray is going to come.
I'm privileged to share with you today about one extraordinary woman who is important here at PSR, Georgia Harkness, pioneering theologian and former PSR faculty member. She lived from 1891 to 1974 and was a pioneering theologian in the Methodist tradition. She was a prolific writer, having written 30 books, the first woman hired to teach theology at a Christian seminary, and the first female member of the American Theological Society. That's pretty wonderful. Harkness served on the faculty of the Pacific School of Religion for 11 years, from 49 to 1960, during which time she became a leading figure in the field of feminist theology. She advocated for women's ordination, yay, and for the inclusion of women in the life of the church, and held a lifelong commitment to social justice and progressive theology. Her education began with an undergraduate degree from Cornell University, one of the few universities that admitted women at that time. In 1917, she entered Boston University's newly opened School of Religious Education, where she would earn a Master's of Religious Education and a Master's of Arts in Philosophy before completing her PhD in 1923. Harkness was ordained locally as a Methodist deacon in 1926 and as an elder in 1938. Under local ordination, she was permitted to exercise most ministerial roles, but denied membership in the annual conference due to her gender. She campaigned continuously and vociferously for full equality, saying that while Scripture has, quote, done more than any other agency for the emancipation of women, the church itself is the most impregnable stronghold of male dominance. At the 1956 denominational assembly, when Methodist women were finally admitted to full pastoral status, the entire gathering gave Harkness a standing ovation in recognition for her leadership. In addition to fighting for women's rights and inclusion, Harkness fought for the rights of all, campaigning against war, racism, and economic inequality. Clearly, she belonged at PSR. She grew to be a pronounced denouncer of racism and unbridled capitalism and the internment of Japanese Americans in internment camps during Second World War. A great defender of women's rights, a promoter of women's ordination, an ecumenist in 60 to 70-year career as probably the most pronounced female theologian of her time, said Reverend Alfred T. Day of the United Methodist General Commission on Archives and History. We are grateful to her today and always. And I'll just add that the song that we are going to sing, she wrote the third verse of that song that we are singing. So.
Would you join me in singing "This Is My Song"? You can feel free to stand if you'd like. This is my song. Second verse. Third verse.
Today, as we focus on coloring the power of women's voices, we will hear the testimonies of members of our own communities, and we will weave in excerpts from the writings of Audre Lorde, specifically from her essay on transformation of silence into language and action from her cancer journals written in 1997. We will also hear a small portion from her poem, Litany for Survival. At the end of these excerpts, and in between readings and testimonies, we will saturate ourselves with the sound of a singing bowl chime. Let us begin, and may you hear what the Spirit is saying to us through these readings and testimonies. Transformation of Silence into Language and Action from the Cancer Journals of Audre Lorde, 1997. I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal, and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. That the speaking profits me beyond any other effect. I am standing here as a Black lesbian poet, and the meaning of all that waits upon the fact that I am still alive and might not have been. Less than 2 months ago, I was told by 2 doctors, one male and one female, that I would have to have breast surgery, and that there was a 60 to 80% chance that the tumor was malignant. Between that telling and the actual surgery, there was a 3-week period of the agony of an involuntary reorganization of my entire life. The surgery was completed and the growth was benign. But within those 3 weeks, I was forced to look upon myself and my living with a harsh and urgent clarity that has left me still shaken, but much stronger. Some of what I experienced during that time has helped elucidate for me much of what I feel concerning the transformation of silence into language and action. In becoming forcibly and essentially aware of my mortality and of what I wished and wanted for my life, however short it may be, priorities and omissions became strongly etched in a merciless light, and what I most regretted were my silences. Of what had I ever been afraid? Ashe.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a privilege to be sharing about voices and women voices in particular today. We are all born with one, and only through life do we understand how and when to use it. Thinking in a religious context, historically, women's voices have often been silenced, undervalued, or ignored. For me, I remember the first time I spoke in a public place. It was in my church, sharing a testimony about getting into my top choice college, Howard University. My voice shaked, and while sharing how my high school counselor doubted my odds, I stood there in front of those who poured into me, nurtured me, and encouraged me that I was headed to Howard in the fall. Fast forward 7 years later, I'm in a different church, and this one is where I lead youth group. I was able to teach the ways of Jesus, where Jesus cared for the quiet, unhoused, and often downtrodden. I was asked to speak on a Sunday morning. This time I was visibly red, my voice shaked, but the word went forth. Sometimes the fear of speaking is worse than the act. Yes. Last year, my brother died unexpectedly, and to be honest, I'm still processing it. I was asked to speak with the church and decided to speak about grief. I had a plan. I thought it through. I was ready to deliver this message. And yet, the way I thought that it was going to go was completely different. In the midst of talking about the grief, I was overcome with grief. My laptop, which was on a music stand, so obviously not super stable, literally closed and fell on the ground. Then I just started crying. I was just literally crying as I was supposed to be preaching to this group, to this congregation, that I had some context that they had just lost a member for the first time in their short community life. I spoke through the tears. I had lost control of what I had planned, but I finished the message. When we discover and decide to use our voice, it's not always how we picture it. We can't dictate how others will respond, or in my case, how I would respond. Personally, I was mortified. Never did I think I would cry through a sermon, yet I did. After the service, I spoke to people who had been dealing with grief in ways I did not know. A visitor hadn't been to church in a while because she was walking in grief of losing her father. A close friend of mine was marking his father's sunset date on that Sunday morning. When we were talking, he shared that he attended high school with my brother. And he shared new memories that I could hold on to. Using your voice can impact others in a way you don't know. Yes. Or beyond what you could imagine. Reminder, your voice matters. Listen to Creator and share. Lead with vulnerability, and you'll be surprised what comes from that. Thank you.
We are touched by grief today now as well. And I began to recognize a source of power within myself that comes from the knowledge that while it is most desirable not to be afraid, one of our mottos, learning to put fear into perspective gave me a great strength. I was going to die, if not sooner than later, whether or not I had ever spoken myself. My silence had not protected me. Your silence does not protect you. The woman who sustained me through that period, the women who sustained me through that period were black and white, young and old, lesbian, bisexual, and heterosexual, and we all shared a war against the tyrannies of silence. They all gave me a strength and concern without which I could not have survived intact.
Today I have a voice. For many years, I was led to believe my voice was the one society said it was, the one my job said it was, or the one everyone else in my life said it was. I started finding it, though, when I sat with my grandmother, who was a single mom in 1928, raising a son, not alone, but with the help of my family, her family. She taught me about my great-grandmother, who ran the home and land while her husband worked as a sheep herder. That voice got louder when she passed, and I carried her with me in my soul. My voice grew in definition with every conversation I have ever had with my mom. She's my grandfather's only child, and my grandmother's second child, born 13 years after her first. Now that's something that's unheard of in a Latin and Native American family. Only children? But she taught me about social justice and to fight for brown and red people to be seen. She also taught us about what it's like to be heard. My mom showed me to never back down from what I believe and that women can do anything. I lost her 6 years ago. Today, my voice is mine. It carried my convictions, my beliefs, my joy, my sorrow, and my pain. It tells the stories of those I love, the places I've been, and the amazing, glorious people I have met so far in my journey. Its timber took hold as I took my place with others in the LGBTQIA2 spirit community. Its volume has grown louder as I took my place with Mi Familia, or Yo Soy Joaquin. That's me. And I am Mary Crow Dog. Those are my people, the people of the land, the people who have been in this country since 1500, before it was a country. We did not just show up. My voice grows tender when I met my wife 30 years ago, in the years of added richness. And it was strengthened by the students I work with, the Fort Collins Lutheran Campus Ministry, the Student Housing Initiative. Every day I'm with them, these young people give me voice, and they help me listen to theirs as I see them head in the world. These are the people who have helped us and helped me. They give me my voice that was given to me by God and strengthened by life and people. Thank you.
What are the words you do not yet have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? And of course, I am afraid. You can hear it in my voice, because the transformation of silence into language and action is an act of self-revelation. And that always seems fraught with danger. But my daughter said, tell them about how you're never really a whole person if you remain silent. Because there's always that one little piece inside you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, it gets madder and madder and hotter and hotter. And if you don't speak it out one day, it will just up and punch you in the mouth from the inside.
We can't hear you.
Michelle, you're muted.
We can't hear you.
Hi, Michelle. We can hear you.
We cannot.
Your mic's not picking up.
That's because I turned it off just before I started speaking. This was an object lesson. Okay, I apologize. I'm still trying to befriend my voice. How do I trace the history of my voice over 57 years? My voice is its own animal, and my relationship with it ebbs and flows, sways between trying to tame it and letting it be wild, sways between doubting it and trusting it. I grew up in a culture, home and religion, that did not welcome women's voices. And then I lived much of my adulthood in a culture and religion that did not welcome women's voices. But I had things to say, a fire in my bones. And I learned that art was a way I could speak that flew under the radar, a voice without vocalization. With art, poetry, and storytelling, I could say things that I couldn't say otherwise. And that could have been enough. But there were things in the world that didn't make sense to me, and the fire in my bones would not go out. Anger made me brave and persistent. And so I tried to be logical, reasonable, not too arty and not too soft. I used my voice in spaces that were resistant to it, trying to bring change. A friend once called me a salmon, jumping into a raging river and swimming upstream against the current. And that could have been enough. But then I came to PSR. And PSR was a unique and different environment for me. Here, my voice was permitted in the space, but not just permitted, welcomed in the space, but not just welcomed, sought after. The ease of sharing in these spaces of learning made me wonder about my voice. Was my voice just reactive? Was it just for pushing against the world? Or did I have a voice that was uniquely mine, that stood for something? I knew what I wanted to say, and I understand that this will in many ways sound cliche. And I risk being dismissed again by choosing my soft and arty voice. But I am certain now that this is the core of my voice and the core of who I am. I want people to know deeply that they belong already, that they are loved, that they belong to something so vast they can't see it in its entirety. If they could know this, they would be free. Free to be themselves, creative, inquisitive, joyful, real, and human. Someone once dismissed this cry of my heart by saying, "You think everyone is beautiful, but that is not true. I think that each person is beautiful, and I'm constantly surprised when I witness it. Each person is a beautiful doorway to bringing beauty into the world. How do I give voice to that? How do I communicate that? Sometimes I communicate that by being silent, by making space for the other to bring forth who they are, by listening with anticipation, knowing the beauty is coming. Sometimes I make people uncomfortable by naming the beauty I see in them. Often I say it wrong, hoping that something will land and the Holy Spirit will steward it and it will become a seed of belongingness. In the Oregon forests where I live, we know that when a tree is cut down, the tree is not dead, it is amputated. The stump remains, sometimes for decades, pumping all of its nutrients into the vegetation around it. This is how I want to use the rest of my life. This is what I am searching to give voice to. Take this truth as a nutrient into yourself. You are beloved. Take this truth and cultivate it. You already belong completely. Your existence changes everything for the better. If I could say this with my voice, it might be enough.
In the cause of silence, each of us draws a face of her own fear. Fear of contempt, fear of censure, fear of some judgment or recognition, of challenge, of annihilation. But most of all, I think we fear the visibility without which we cannot truly live. That visibility which makes us most vulnerable is that which also is the source of our greatest strength. We can sit in our corners mute forever while our sisters and ourselves are wasted, while our children are distorted and destroyed, while our earth is poisoned. We can sit in our safe corners mute as bottles, and we will still be no less afraid. But each of us is here now because in one way or another, we share a commitment to language and to the power of language, and to the reclaiming of that language which has been made to work against us.
Good morning and good afternoon. All here today, we heard the words of our dear Lord. Your silence will not protect you. I wish I had known that earlier, but because for many years of my life, I learned the opposite. I learned how to be quiet, how to step back, how to make myself smaller. I grew up in South Korea in a non-Christian family, and my family was culturally influenced by Buddhism, Confucianism, and sometimes shamanism. In Korea, it is kind of common, especially at the beginning of a new year or before a major life event, for families to visit a shaman or fortune teller to ask about their future. When I was around 13 or 14, my mother once visited a shaman to ask about our family's future. And the shaman said something about me. He said, "This girl's energy is too strong. She talks too much." What did I say? Her energy may interfere with her older brother's success. I didn't do anything, right? 13 or 14, what? So apparently, even as a child, I was already too much. Those words somehow stayed within me so long, and slowly, without realizing it, I began to shrink, speaking less, stepping back, taking up less space. But the deeper impact was inner doubt. Am I really someone who should lead? Do I really belong in these spaces? Even when people later encouraged and affirmed me, that inner voice did not disappear easily. It kept whispering, "Be quiet, be quieter, be smaller." Then when I started attending church as a teenager and I encountered a new world, I loved the church, Bible studies, cool friends, the music, the community, all good. But I also noticed something. On Sunday mornings, the voices at the pulpit were almost always male voices. The people preaching, praying, teaching were usually men. And the women? They were everywhere too, but mostly behind the scenes, in the kitchen, preparing food, setting tables, washing dishes. It was as if the men occupied the front of the sanctuary, while the women carried the life of the church in the background. And slowly, without anyone saying it directly, you learn something about whose voices were expected to lead, and whose work was expected to remain unseen. So then, when I told people I wanted to go to seminary, and some years later, You can imagine their responses. People asked, "What? You? You're a woman? You? Not your brother? You? You want to study what? Theology? Come on. You want to be a pastor, not a pastor's wife?" Endless and endless responses like that. And yet, I went. And when I went to seminary now, the reality was not so different. Sorry, not so different. Most of the classrooms were still filled with men, and most of the voices leading the conversations were male voices. And in those moments, and that old voice from my childhood would whisper again, "Hey, be quieter, be smaller, hey, stay still." Then I moved to the United States. No surprise here yet. Suddenly, the story became even more layered. Now I was not only a woman in these spaces, but also an immigrant with an accent and a different cultural story. But somewhere along the way, something began to change. I began to realize that the very experiences that once made me feel like I did not belong were also shaping my calling. Because I knew what it felt like to be underestimated, I could recognize the voices that were still unheard. Because I knew what it felt like to struggle for space, I became passionate about helping others find theirs. So today, as a professor, as a minister, and a scholar, much of my work is about lifting up stories that are often overlooked. Immigrants, women, and communities at the margins. Women's history, or history, her story, does not only change through famous leaders or dramatic moments, but sometimes history changes when someone simply decides not to disappear.
Yes, yes.
And when we make space for one another's voices, something beautiful happens. Scripture reminds us of this vision. In Acts 2:17, we read, "I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy." When the Spirit is poured out, the voice of God is not limited to a few people. It is spoken through sons and daughters, through all people. So if there is one thing I have learned on this journey, it is this. Finding your voice is not about proving that you are strong enough. You are already enough. It is about recognizing that the Spirit has already given you the voice. And when you claim that voice, you make space for others to do the same. Thank you.
And it is never without fear of visibility, of the harsh light of scrutiny, and perhaps judgment of pain, of death. But we can learn to work and speak when we are afraid in the same way. We have learned to work and speak when we are tired. For we have been socialized to respect fear more than our own needs for language and definition. And while we wait in silence for that final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. And from the litany of survival When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcome. But when we are in silence, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive.
Hi, friends. As a musician and songwriter, I've always looked up to women like Tracy Chapman, Carole King, and Joni Mitchell, among many others. They have been a source of wisdom, and sometimes it feels like they are narrating my life. Sarah Bareilles has a song called Armor that is an anthem for women in a lot of ways. But one verse especially for me characterizes how I have found my voice. It says, "Step 3, I see the unforgettable, incredible ones who came before me. Brought poetry, brought science, sowed quiet seeds of self-reliance. Bloomed in me, so here I am. You think I am high and mighty, mister? Wait till you meet my little sister." My life, it is the women around me, before me, and after me who have been my greatest inspiration. Not only finding my voice, but using it. My grandmother was looked at as a kind of local saint in the area where I grew up. She hauled all of her 10 kids to church on Sundays and was an incredible example of faith. Those 10 kids all went on to be examples to my generation. My mother is a fiery defender of anyone being mistreated for any reason. She has shown me what it looks like to stand up for the vulnerable. And my younger sister was my number one biggest advocate as I stepped into my own womanhood. When I came out, she gathered my family together to air out concerns, ask questions, and really understand. Rather than simply defend me, she gave me a space to use my own voice. Much like Ms. Ann did when she invited me to give this testimony today. I'm blessed to have women friends, women teachers, and faculty here at PSR, and in all of my daily experiences, who inspire and encourage me to have a voice. It is my hope and prayer that all of our voices can be heard and continue to inspire those who come after us in ways that create a better world for all. Thanks.
Today, our time of communion, our holy meal, will be a communion of names and stories. That is how we will feed ourselves today. As you contemplate the image on screen entitled The First Supper, I'll invite you to think about who are the women that have been important to your life and formation. Take the slips of paper you've been given and write those names down. You may share with your chapel neighbor and certainly type in the chat. For those who are in the physical room, once you've written those names, we invite you to pin the names to our clothesline. As we do this, you will hear in the background India Arie's I Am Light.
We shall sing, we are dancing, Sarah's Circle. 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 Sisters, siblings, all. We will all do our own naming. We will do our own naming. We will do our own naming. Sisters, siblings, all. Here we seek and find our history. seek and find our future. Sisters, siblings, on and on the circles moving, on the circles, on the circles moving. Sisters, siblings, all we are open. We are open. We are shining. We are open. We are shining. We are open. We are shining. Sisters, siblings,
Amen. We have a benediction. If you would go to the next slide, though, please. There is living herstory happening. Next slide, please. We are celebrating the women of PSR. Because we make living herstory and change the world. Aren't they beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. Hear this poem as a benediction by Richard Dorwin. Blessed woman, how blessed you are, O woman of the world. Sure heaven smiles upon you here and now. You are the flag, our future when unfurled, the voice of peace inside your vested vow. How blessed you are, O woman of the light. The angels sing, insisting that you shine. Your crocheted cape was crocheted overnight. The gods themselves, the strands to intertwine. How blessed you are, O woman of the ark. You are the loop as surely as the sun. Your ships come in, it's time to disembark, your place to take, to dazzle everyone. How blessed you are, O woman of the star. How blessed you are, the being that you are. Go in peace and enjoy, lifting your voice wherever you go. Amen.